that stops the flow of mass illegal immigration across our border, stops the work permits being given to illegal immigrants. This is pro-worker. This helps American workers maintain their wages and maintain their jobs. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Let me ask you about some of the children who came across the border, were trafficked across the border in the last administration. 520,000 of them, to be precise, unaccompanied children trafficked across the border. Hundreds of thousands of them lost and now being exploited by companies like Tyson's Food, for example. Let me just give you an example of bad corporate behavior. Tyson's Food has closed down 2 major plants in my state, the state of Missouri, just in the last year and a half. They have canceled contracts with farmers. They have put thousands of workers in my state out of business. And yet, we know from the investigations done by the New York Times and others that they have huge numbers of illegal child labor in their supply chains. In their factories, they are putting children who are trafficked here to work. So they're firing American workers, but they are exploiting child workers. Will you go after companies like Tyson's and anyone else who would violate our labor laws and exploit children while they are firing American workers?
Yes, it's an important remit under the Department of Labor, as you know, to protect and not exploit all workers, but certainly child labor should not be accepted by anybody in America. And the Department of Labor has the enforcement capability to double down if they knowingly are breaking the law and exploiting children in their factories.
I think we've got to make the penalties even tougher. Senator Booker and I have bipartisan legislation to do that. And again, it is pro-worker to say we're going to protect Americans who are working legally, and we're not going to allow children to be exploited in this country, or people trafficked into this country to be exploited for the purpose of profits by these mega corporations.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Hawley. Senator Osha Brooks.
Thank you. Good morning, Mrs. Chavez-Deremer. And I want to, first of all, congratulate you and your family on your nomination. And to begin by saying Maryland, the workers that we're talking about today, Maryland has the highest per capita share of federal workers in the country. So the people that we're talking about are my constituents, by and large, and they are reeling from this administration's mass firings. Now, when we had our conversation last week, and I know that it was reinforced today, you assured me that you would abide by the law, that even if encouraged to break the law, you said that you commit to following the law. Is that still the case?
Yes.
Now, do you believe that a collective bargaining agreement is enforceable under the law?
Yes.
And if I can ask you, are you aware of the statute which recognizes the right of federal employees to engage in collective bargaining?
I don't know the statute number, so.
It's Title VII of the Civil Service Reform Act, but what I can tell you is that statute, are you aware of that statute or any statute that limits the binding nature of a collective bargaining agreement based on when it was signed?
I'm not an attorney, as you know, and so I would like to.
But you would be in charge
Yes.
of enforcing the law. So if it is the law,
Yes,
that there is no statute that limits the binding nature of a collective bargaining agreement, then you would enforce that collective bargaining agreement.
I will fully and fairly enforce the law.
Now, I want to tell you that President Trump has canceled what he has called as lame duck collective bargaining agreements. And I want to ask you whether what statute there is that you believe would give the president the authority to cancel or void approved union contracts certified during a lame duck.
I'm not familiar, and I cannot weigh in on any specific statute that you're asking me about.
But again, if it is the case, and it is, that there is no statute that allows you to set aside a collective bargaining agreement, there's no time limit, would you enforce that collective bargaining agreement pursuant to the law?
Again, Senator, being not familiar specifically, I would certainly want to, discuss this with the solicitors at the Department of Labor if confirmed, just to make sure that I am on the same page without committing to exactly.
Well, no, but once it's confirmed for you that it's the law, you have committed that you will enforce the law.
I'm committed to always fully and fairly enforce the law, and I will work with the solicitors of the Department of Labor to make sure before I weigh in specifically on this specific that you're talking about.
Okay, let me ask you another question. Now, President Trump made some, I would call it troubling and shameful comments after the devastating fatal plane crash that occurred here in Washington, D.C. I'm sure you're aware of that plane crash.
Yes, ma'am.
And he blamed, at the time, while the bodies were still in the water, many of them were children, he took that moment to blame the incident on Federal Aviation Administration hiring people with intellectual and mental health disabilities. Again, while the recovery efforts were going, do you agree with the president's comments?
Senator, I cannot comment on what the president says or does not say. I support the president in this agenda that he is moving forward with.
No.
So
The question is not his agenda. Do you agree
understand.
that with the comment that hiring people with intellectual and mental health disabilities was the reason do you agree with the comment that that was the cause?
I have not had a conversation with the president on this, and I cannot weigh in and speak to that any further.
Okay, I want to make you aware that the same hiring language that appeared on the Federal Aviation Administration's website under President Biden are also there during President Trump's first administration as well. So nothing has changed in terms of the hiring practices. But should workers with disabilities be allowed to work
Absolutely.
at FAA? Okay. Now, in an email that was sent out across the government through OPM, it classified, it used language that, quote, said that their goal was to move from their lower productivity jobs in the public sector to higher productivity jobs in the
the workforce and not pick up and leave. And again, invite people back. So many people have left the workforce, even the search of a job, and we want to make sure that those people are coming back from full force.
Okay. I want to take a moment and talk about the franchise model again. And I heard the chairman's opening remarks or questions kind of touched on this, but I want to go back there. In my mind, what the franchise model has done is helped many people achieve their American dream of owning their own business and being successful too.
That's right.
And I think it's been a great opportunity, especially for women, for minorities, for veterans as well. And we have to work on this balance. I want the unions to be successful. I want the franchises to be successful as well. How do we achieve that balance? Any thoughts on where's the win-win opportunity when it comes to that issue?
Well, a lot of times the references to the gig economy and understanding the franchise model as well. And I support that the efforts of, the franchise model as it does allow the flexibility for business owners to determine, do they want to be in business for themselves? Do they want to, work for somebody else? But I think the only change that can be talked about today that will work in all of these is everybody has to have that voice and understanding at the table. One of the reasons the president nominated me, and then it's kind of been mentioned, but it's not always that we're going to agree on both sides, but we're going to be understood, that they will have a voice. That's the difference this time, that I want everybody at that table to have that voice and what is valuable to them and their membership or them and their employees or a business owner when they're struggling. Compliance is important, the education of compliance. And then also, that we can protect all American workers. There's a continuum from the first day that we have our first job all the way through retirement. Wherever a worker is or a retiree is on that continuum, they should be respected for the hard work that they've put in. I can tell you, bringing everybody at the table is going to do just that and reinforce the things that we care about in our respective states. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Representative Chavez-Deremer. I enjoyed our conversation last week and appreciate your enthusiasm. I thought I'd start with just a quick answer, a quick question, that if you track the shrinking of the middle class, which we see in this country over about the last 60 years, I think it's safe to say, it almost exactly tracks the reductions in unionized labor in terms of as a percentage of the workforce. They track almost perfectly. Do you agree that we want to get more workers in unions as a method to expand the middle class? Is that a worthy goal?
Well, I think the goal is the option. If people choose to organize, they should have a free and fair right to organize. And if they choose not to, they should also have that right.
But don't we want to have more? Isn't the country better off with more working people getting paid better wages? And really, the only way that generally happens is through union representation.
Well, again, supportive of both sides of the table is going to be important. If an employee chooses that they want to be in a union, or they have the right to do so. And the same if they choose not to. It was just mentioned on the other side about, what does it look like for the franchise model or the independent contractor model. So I think the flexibility and the conversation is what's key here. And is there room for both? I believe there is. The president certainly believes there is, because this is the new direction of where oftentimes we've had the extremes arguing. If we keep the American worker first and foremost, we're going to come to the center of that table and I think develop exactly what you're talking about, keeping more of their hard-earned dollars.
I appreciate that. And again, the ultimate goal, we want to expand the middle class. I appreciate your small business background as a small business person myself in a past life. I think that will be invaluable. We met last week with some of the leadership from the Cherry Creek School District in South Metro Denver, one of many that has innovative apprenticeship systems they put in place, and they're training teachers, HVAC technicians, engineers, aerospace manufacturers, go down the list, healthcare workers of various sorts. And this is just one of many programs we've got in Colorado. Now, the president's proposed funding freezes are going to prevent us from keeping many of these programs running in our state, and I think taking valuable opportunities away from the kids. How can you, as secretary, assuming you get approved, how can you protect these programs against attempts to unilaterally, and I think in some cases unlawfully, claw back the federal funding from these programs?
Well, I think the key here is going to be presenting to the president, again, I mentioned visiting and understanding exactly what's happening in Colorado and all the respective states, and presenting to the president as his advisor what's happening on the ground. That's what he wants to see, a candid, clear, concise picture so that as we move forward in the America First agenda, that we're going to be supporting the American worker. That is first and foremost in his agenda. We're aligned in that. That's the conversation that we had, is that he wants to support the American worker. And so I will present to him the clear facts from all of the respective states.
Okay. Back to youth apprenticeships, which, as you know, my last 6 years as governor, that's what I spent a lot of time on. And I look at it as one of the great gaps that 65 to 70% of our kids aren't going to get a 4-year degree. And we have done a piss poor job of giving them the tools to acquire the skills necessary to have, the American dream. Is there ways that we can look at to expand apprenticeship programs, youth apprenticeship programs? So I'm not just talking about 18 and over. I'm talking about 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old kids who could want to work in an accounting firm or an advanced manufacturing or a hospital, whatever. How can you see us expanding that through your tenure at the Department of Education?
Well, I think we can certainly agree that, and you heard the conversation about, speaking to even our youngest, our junior high, our middle school kids, all the way up into high school. But I would like to work with your office and, as if confirmed, get into the Department of Labor, really expand and explore what can be done. But if I could work with your office specifically on this and get to know it a little bit better, I would like to have that conversation with you.
No, I will take that and we'll follow up on that. We'll get you out to Colorado. A lot of the records, on February 5th, DOJ went to the Department of Labor and demanded that certain federal employees' information be released. And I think there was a lot of retirement account, private information. We haven't seen I haven't seen any disclosure of how those records are going to be used. And I think, what are the reassurances that the American people have that those are still safely secure?
Well, I haven't seen them either because I have not been confirmed, as you all know. I have not been read in onto what is happening with DOJ in the Department of Labor. But if confirmed, that'll be the first thing I do, is make sure that I'm briefed on it and made aware of everything that's happening. So I don't have that answer for you because I don't know what's been happening either.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
This concludes our hearing. You did very well, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
To your parents and husband and children, I know y'all are incredibly proud.
This is
so let me just
my
say
mom
that.
and dad,
Yeah.
my daughter, my parents.
For any senator who wishes to ask additional questions for the record will be due tomorrow at 5 p.m. We now conclude the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
from all communities to become successful business owners. The American people rejected these anti-worker policies at the ballot box. With President Trump back in office, we have the opportunity to turn the page and enact a pro-America agenda, empowering workers, securing economic prosperity. If confirmed as Secretary of Labor, I look forward to working together to accomplish this shared mission. Your nomination has support from both unions and businesses. You're in a unique position to build a bridge between these two groups to benefit all workers. With potential labor disputes on the horizon, I'm sure these relationships will be an asset to the Trump administration. There are concerns, however, about your past support for the Democrats' cornerstone